Long ago, in the village of Korinyoga, Nyasha carried a belly round and still, heavy with the promise of life. Yet, unlike other expectant mothers, her stomach did not stir. There were no kicks, no gentle nudges, only a deep, unmoving weight. The villagers whispered, calling her child the sleeper. But Nyasha believed otherwise. "My child is special," she would murmur, rubbing her belly lovingly each night, singing ancient lullabies under the moonlit sky, hoping her voice would awaken her unborn child. The whispers grew louder as Nyasha's belly grew heavier. Women shook their heads in pity. "Her child sleeps too much," they murmured. Men frowned, wary of the unnatural stillness. "No good will come of it," said the village elder, his voice heavy with foreboding. Yet Nyasha clung to hope. On a night when lightning danced furiously across the heavens, Nyasha felt a piercing pain. The storm howled as the village midwife rushed to her side. Women gathered, murmuring prayers, their faces taut with worry. The sky wept as thunder roared, shaking the earth. Nyasha screamed as she bore down, the air heavy with anticipation. But when the midwife pulled the child into the world, the heart fell silent. In her hands was not a baby, but a small wooden box, smooth and polished, etched with the faces of ancestors, their eyes hollow and unblinking. Nyasha stared at the box. Her body weak, her voice trembling. Where is my baby?" she pleaded. No one answered. No one moved. Fear wrapped its cold fingers around their hearts, for they could feel it, a presence lurking within the box, something not meant for the world of the living. The box trembled, a faint scratching sound echoing from inside. The lid creaked, lifting ever so slowly, inch by inch. The faces on the box seemed to twist, their mouths widening into silent screams. The women gasped and backed away, clutching their charms in trembling hands. Two tiny hands, pale as moonlight, emerged, pushing the lid fully open. A child sat inside, his skin ghostly white, his eyes as dark as the midnight sky. He did not cry. He did not blink. He only stared, his gaze empty and hollow. Nyasha's heart twisted. The child raised a hand and pointed at the midwife. Her body went rigid, her eyes rolling back as she fell lifelessly to the floor. The women screamed, stumbling over each other as they fled the hut, leaving Nyasha alone with the child and the cursed box. The child climbed out, his feet touching the ground, and the air grew frigid. Frost crept along the floor, turning the earth beneath him to ice. His lips curled into a thin, eerie smile. "Mama," he spoke, his voice echoing like a whisper from the shadows. Outside, the villagers gathered, their faces pale with fear. "That is no child," the elder declared. "It is an omalicha, a spirit from the shadows." The village chief arrived, his staff striking the ground. "Bring the child out," he commanded, but no one dared to enter. The chief's voice boomed with authority, yet fear quivered beneath his words. "This child must be banished," he cried. But no warrior stepped forward, their courage snatched by the icy air surrounding the child. Nyasha shielded her son, her heart torn between love and dread. Without warning, the doorway burst into flames. Villagers screamed, stumbling backward as the fire danced wildly, barring them from entering the hut. But the child stepped through the flames unharmed, his eerie eyes fixed on the crowd. The flames died, leaving only a circle of ashes. Nyasha followed her child, her heart pounding. "Please, he is just a baby," she pleaded. But the chief's face was stern. "This child cannot stay in Korinyoga. He brings death and fear." Nyasha's tears fell as the villagers chanted for the spirits to take the child away. The sky darkened as the villagers' chants grew louder. Winds howled, shaking the trees, but the child lifted his hand, and the world fell silent. Not even the leaves rustled. His power was undeniable, and the villagers' faces turned pale with fear. His gaze fell upon a young boy hiding behind his mother. With a flick of his finger, the boy floated into the air. His mother screamed, pulling at his legs, but it was no use. Nyasha cried out, "Stop!" The boy fell, his breath shallow and weak. The chief stepped back, his staff trembling in his grip. "This child brings curses," he muttered, his face pale. "He must leave Kirinyaga, or we are doomed." But Nyasha held her child close, defying their fear. "He is my son. He is no monster." The villagers demanded his exile, chanting prayers to the spirits. The wind howled, echoing their pleas. The chief raised his staff. "Nyasha, take the child and leave. Never return." Tears fell as Nyasha's heart shattered. Her village, her home, had turned against her. With her son in her arms, Nyasha fled into the dense forest. Shadows danced beneath the ancient trees, whispering her name. She stumbled over roots, her feet bleeding, her body exhausted. But she did not stop. She could not stop. The forest was alive, its leaves whispering in a language Nyasha did not understand. The shadows watched, eyes gleaming from the undergrowth. Her child stared back at them, unafraid, his dark eyes glowing softly. "Mama," he whispered. "They are waiting." From the shadows, a figure emerged, tall and thin, his eyes hollow, his body flickering like smoke. "I am the keeper of shadows," he announced, his voice echoing like a ghostly whisper. "And that child belongs to me." Nyasha's heart froze, fear gripping her soul. Nyasha stood firm, shielding her child from the keeper. "He is mine," she shouted, her voice breaking through the night. The keeper's hollow eyes flickered. "He belongs to the shadows, to the in-between," he whispered. "Give him to me, and I will spare your life." Nyasha tightened her grip on her son. "No. I will not give him to you." The keeper's form flickered like smoke, his eyes narrowing. "Love is a frail thing, mortal. It cannot save him from his destiny." But Nyasha's resolve did not waver. The wooden box appeared at Nyasha's feet, its dark surface gleaming under the moonlight. Its lid creaked open, revealing red silk within. "He must return to his cradle," the keeper commanded. The child reached for the box, but Nyasha pulled him away, fear tightening in her chest. Dark mist poured from the box, forming clawed hands that reached for Nyasha and her child. Nyasha turned and ran, her heart pounding, the shadows clawing at her heels. The keeper's laughter echoed through the forest, cold and merciless. "You cannot escape destiny." The shadows slithered through the forest, swift and silent. Nyasha stumbled over roots, her breath ragged. She could feel them closing in, cold and unforgiving. The trees seemed to bend toward her, their branches whispering her name. But she would not stop. She could not. Nyasha collapsed in a clearing, the moonlight bathing her in silver. The shadows hissed, recoiling from the light. The keeper's voice echoed, "Light cannot hold back the darkness forever." Nyasha looked up, her tears glistening. "I will protect him, even if it costs me my life." The keeper's form solidified, his hollow eyes gleaming. "Give him to me, and you will live." Nyasha shook her head, her body trembling. "I would rather die than abandon my child." The keeper's face twisted. "Then you have chosen your fate." The shadows surged forward, crashing against the circle of light. Nyasha screamed as they clawed at her, icy fingers tearing at her skin. But she did not let go of her son. Her love burned within her, a flame that would not be extinguished. The child looked at the shadows, his dark eyes glowing. He raised his tiny hand, and a golden light burst forth, driving the shadows back. The keeper staggered, his form flickering. "Impossible, is light," he whispered, his voice filled with fear. The golden light grew brighter, swirling around Nyasha and her child. The keeper shielded his eyes, his body fading. "This is not over," he vowed, his voice echoing through the trees. Then, with a final whisper, he vanished into the shadows, leaving Nyasha trembling and alone. The forest grew silent as Nyasha cradled her child, the golden light fading around them. The trees stood still, their branches no longer whispering. Yet, she could feel eyes watching from the shadows, waiting. She knew the keeper would return. Nyasha carried her son through the forest, her feet bleeding, her body weary. The mountain loomed ahead, its peak lost in the clouds. An elder had once spoken of its power to ward off evil. She would climb it, no matter the cost. The mountain path was treacherous, lined with jagged rocks and steep cliffs. As she climbed, voices echoed around her, whispers of those who had walked this path before. Their words were faint, haunting, as if warning her of the trials to come. At the mountain's midpoint, a figure blocked her path, a giant. Draped in robes of mist and crowned with leaves. His eyes were deep as the earth. "Why do you carry a child of shadows?" he asked, his voice rumbling like thunder. Nyasha stood firm, her arms tightening around her child. "He is my son, and I will protect him." The guardian's eyes narrowed. "To carry him is to carry a curse. The keeper will come for him." Nyasha's heart wavered, but she did not yield. The guardian's staff struck the ground, and the earth trembled. "Prove your love," he challenged. The mountain shifted, the path twisting into a labyrinth. "Only one with a pure heart can find the way. If you fail, you will be lost forever." The walls of the labyrinth were high, the paths winding and endless. Whispers echoed around her, voices filled with doubt and fear. They spoke her darkest thoughts, her deepest worries. Nyasha's heart grew heavy. Her steps faltering. The shadows took form, twisting into faces she recognized, villagers who had called her son cursed, the chief who had banished her, even her own reflection, eyes filled with fear. "He is a monster," they whispered. "He will bring ruin." Nyasha fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. The shadows closed in, their voices growing louder. But her child reached out, his tiny hand touching her cheek. "Mama," he whispered. His warmth broke through the darkness, giving her strength. Nyasha stood, her heart steady. "He is my son. I will not abandon him." Her love surged forward, shattering the shadows. The labyrinth trembled, the walls crumbling into dust. The guardian's voice echoed, "You have passed the first test. But the journey is far from over." The path grew steeper, the air thin and cold. Nyasha's muscles ached, her breath ragged. Yet, she pushed onward, her child nestled against her chest. She could feel the mountain's power, ancient and overwhelming, but her love gave her strength. The wind howled, carrying voices from the past. They called Nyasha's name, echoing her fears. "He is not yours," they whispered. "He belongs to the shadows." Nyasha pressed on, her heart heavy but resolute. She would not abandon her child. At the mountain's peak lay a frozen lake, its surface shimmering under the moonlight. Nyasha approached cautiously. Her reflection staring back at her. But the reflection's eyes were hollow, its face twisted with anger. "You are weak," it hissed. The reflection stepped out of the ice, mirroring Nyasha's every move. "You cannot save him," it mocked, its voice cruel and cold. Nyasha's heart pounded, fear clawing at her. But she stood her ground, facing her darker self. The reflection attacked, its hands icy and sharp. Nyasha fought back, her body numb from the cold. Every strike was met with pain, every word with doubt. "He is cursed," the reflection whispered. "He will destroy you." But Nyasha refused to yield. Her child cried out, his voice echoing across the ice. Nyasha's heart surged with love. Her fear melting away. I love him, she shouted, her voice shaking the air. The reflection staggered, its form flickering. Love cannot save him, it hissed, its body cracking. Nyasha's love burst forth, golden light surrounding her. The reflection screamed, its body shattering into shards of ice that scattered across the lake. The surface rippled, the illusion breaking. Nyasha stood victorious, her child's warmth grounding her. The guardian appeared, his eyes solemn. You have faced your fears and shattered your doubts. But the final test awaits. He pointed to the peak. There, you will confront the keeper. Only one will leave the mountain alive. Nyasha climbed the final steps. Her heart heavy with anticipation. The air was frigid, the sky dark. At the summit stood the keeper, his hollow eyes gleaming. You have come far, mortal, he whispered, his voice echoing like a cold wind. But this is the end. The keeper's form shifted, his shadow stretching across the peak. Return the child to the coffin, and I will spare your life. He pointed to the wooden box, its lid open, waiting. Nyasha's heart ached. He is my son. I will not abandon him. Nyasha stood tall, her heart ablaze with love. You will not take him. The keeper's face twisted in rage, shadows swirling around him. You defy me. Foolish mortal. His voice echoed like thunder. But Nyasha's resolve did not falter. She would fight. The keeper attacked, shadows lunging like vipers. Nyasha shielded her child, golden light bursting from her heart. The shadows recoiled, hissing. Light and darkness clashed, the mountain trembling under their power. The sky split, lightning flashing as their wheels collided. The keeper's body shattered, revealing a creature of darkness, twisted and ancient, his eyes void of light. I am the darkness between worlds. He roared. His power surged, shadows flooding the peak. Nyasha braced herself, her love burning brighter than ever. The child's eyes glowed gold, his tiny hand reaching out. The light flowed from him, pure and warm, pushing back the darkness. The keeper screamed as the light burned him. No. It cannot be. He is the heir of shadows. The keeper staggered, his form flickering. Return to the shadows, and he will live as a king. Defy me, and he will be haunted forever. Nyasha's heart broke. Her son's eyes met hers, filled with love and innocence. Mama, Nyasha stepped forward, her arms open. Take me instead. Spare him. The keeper hesitated, his form wavering. You would give yourself for him. Nyasha nodded, tears streaming down her face. I am his mother. I would give him the world. The mountain shook, light bursting from Nyasha. Her love shattered the curse, the shadows screaming as they dissolved. The keeper howled, his body crumbling. No. This is not the end. His voice faded. His form scattered to the wind. The golden light enveloped Nyasha and her child. His eyes sparkled, his curse broken. He was no longer a child of shadows, but of light. Nyasha wept with joy, holding him close. You are free, she whispered, her heart full. The mountain's peak glowed with light, the shadows vanished. Nyasha descended, her child laughing in her arms. The forest welcomed them, the darkness retreating. The villagers watched, their fear replaced with awe. Nyasha had broken fate itself. In Kirinyaga, they tell the tale of Nyasha, the mother who defied shadows. Her love saved her child, breaking the curse of darkness. They say her light still shines on the mountain peak, guarding against evil. Her legacy endures, a testament to the power of love.